Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
Welcome to From Hair to There, a podcast about alopecia, where we bridge the gap between patients, healthcare professionals, and you, our listeners. We bring you diverse alopecia areata stories from around the globe, highlighting the challenges and successes of living with alopecia areata and reminding you that you are never alone in this journey. Hair loss isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and even spiritual, and we're here to discuss it all. I'm Naomi Creek, National Coordinator at Global Healthy Living Foundation Australia, and with me is my fellow co-host, Jo Birch. Jo is a registered psychologist who also lives with alopecia areata.
Thank you, Naomi. It's been quite a journey for me since I was diagnosed with alopecia areata, and I am here to share it all. I believe that every person with alopecia areata has a unique story, and by sharing ours, we can inspire, motivate, and uplift each other. Whether you're diagnosed with alopecia areata, a caregiver, a medical professional, or someone just wanting to learn, then this podcast is for you.
So tune in and let's embark on this journey from hair to there. We're excited to have two guests joining us today. Chel Campbell is a business analyst and founder of the Australia Alopecia Areata Foundation, or the AAAF, where she volunteers her time as president and treasurer. Chel will be sharing some of the important work the organisation does for those affected by the condition. We will also be chatting with Leanne Raditsas, who is 48 years old and currently completing a Master of Teaching at La Trobe University. Her alopecia story began 15 years ago when a small bald patch appeared on her scalp, which eventually led to her becoming completely bald. With the right support and access to advanced treatment, Leanne managed to regain a full head of hair. Thank you both for joining us for a chat. Chel, tell us about your relationship with alopecia areata and what made you start the Australia Alopecia Areata Foundation.
So my journey started over 28 years ago, and it started with my son being diagnosed at 20 months of age. We went to the dermatologist and were diagnosed with alopecia areata. Going back, if you go back 28 years, the condition was not well known and the treatments were not acceptable to a 20-month-old child. So we left the dermatologist with the idea of how do we normalise our child into society. Going back the 28 years, appearance diversity wasn't a word that was actually common, where it is common now. So we worked on the fact of how do we normalise Ryan into society. And to do that, I went through and created school packs and created papers so that people were understanding of what his condition actually was. So we just continued on that path for many, many years, and there were little pockets of support groups around, but they didn't cater for the needs of our child. So therefore, I thought you have to be seen. This condition has to be seen so people can actually understand it and not get it confused with other conditions that are in our society. To do that, we had to be brave and bold and get out there and spread the word. So that's why I created the foundation and been on that journey ever since.
I know you spend so much time on the foundation doing such amazing work. How do you keep going after 15 years of running it?
I still have the desire. I still see the need. We just had a kids camp, and the feedback from the kids camp, when you actually get a child coming back and saying, I was scared to go at first, but I didn't want to leave. All right. I made great friends and I really feel fantastic. It's little comments like that make it all worthwhile. We had the Victoria Open Day last week, and a child that I met over 10 years ago is now he's almost a man. And he just came in and gave me a great big hug and just said, thank you so much. It's those little things that keep me going in regards to it. There's still a need. We don't have a cure. We don't have a successful treatment. We're still going through trials to get to a stage that we will be able to offer a consistent treatment throughout. And until we can do that, there is the need. There's always going to be the need to engage people and welcome people so that they can experience and talk about their own personal journeys. And how do I manage it? Very hard. But basically, I work full time, and on the weekends is when I basically dedicate one full day to the foundation. And I typically will respond to correspondence throughout the week. We have a fantastic committee, and we have great volunteers that assist in some of our major projects that we operate. So I lean on them quite heavily to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Chel, what other role does your organisation play in helping patients navigate and manage their condition, particularly, I guess, when they're first diagnosed?
So the AAAF has a website, and we also have private social media groups. We engage with the dermatologists, hair industry, and also trichologists, the primary ones that will introduce patients to our group. From there, they can navigate through the website and find all of the information that we actually provide. So when they do find us, we do a welcome to them, and we encourage them to engage within our social media platforms so that they can get that one-on-one chat happening with other people or like people going through the same sort of journey. We do also offer several programs within the foundation, and one of those programs is the No Hair We Care pack. And this pack is a welcome pack, and basically it has lots of little goodies and information in it to help them understand what alopecia areata is actually about. Dr. Google is great in providing, information, but it's not necessarily accurate information. So we give that information to the individuals to help them start on their journey. We typically find with individuals, they're very eager and hungry for information at the start of their journey, and they will then make an active choice as to which way they want to take care of themselves. Now, it might be that they go down a medical path, or it might be that they want to actually embrace their new look, and how do they go about embracing that new look. And we then have different information that we provide to them, depending on which path that they would like to undertake.
That's amazing. It sounds like you provide so many resources for patients.
Thanks, Chel. For me, AAAF was quite pivotal in my experience with alopecia areata in a really positive way, and particularly when I was initially first diagnosed, as you mentioned. Leanne, would you be able to share a little bit more about your life with alopecia and the impact on you so far?
So my journey actually began at 15 years of age, so that's 33 years ago. And it took a little while. I'm in regional Victoria, so there was quite a few dermatologist visits to Melbourne, which is a 2-hour drive from Shepparton. And eventually I did get a diagnosis of alopecia. At that time it was just alopecia areata, so a very small patch, probably the size of a 10-cent piece on my scalp. So when I finally found a dermatologist that gave me a correct diagnosis, it was fairly simple to treat. At that time, he put a couple of steroid injections and I was okay from then on for quite a few years. And as Chel said, it wasn't something that I'd ever heard of or seen, or even the GP or other doctors weren't that aware of it. It was a little bit of a long road to even just getting a diagnosis and an understanding of what alopecia was 33 years ago. And so that was fine. Every so often, every couple of years, if I got a little patch, we'd just get a steroid injection, and it wasn't a huge deal until quite a few years later, so 8 years ago, it went rampant and it just rapidly disappeared. So I had a couple of patches, booked a dermatologist appointment sort of 9 months out, because there is a lag time and a difficulty in getting into a dermatologist. And by that 9 months, I'd pretty much lost more than 50% of my hair. So I knew the steroid injections weren't going to cut it that time round. So I got a topper, and then I got a wig, and then I had to look at other medications. So that was a bit of a cycle and a stressful roller coaster of, will I go down this medication track? Will I not? Now that I have a wig, do I just go with the wig and be done with it? Yeah, it's a very stressful, unpredictable condition that I feel sometimes, it holds you hostage. You don't know what's going to happen next. I was very anxious, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress around what possible outcome, was going to lead to a lifetime of baldness or a medication that might fix it. Either option has costs. Wigs are very expensive. They don't last that particularly long. You need to get new ones, and medications are expensive. So a lot of crossroads and a lot of decisions to make along the journey.
Yes, most definitely. And I think what you were talking about in terms of, my role as a psychologist and all of, I guess, those challenges that come with alopecia, I'm interested in particular as to what support and resources you sought out to manage your condition and I guess manage all of those ups and downs along your journey with alopecia areata.
Well, that's where the AAAF comes in. When I discovered their Facebook page, I was like, wow, there are heaps of other people that have this condition. Whereas in the beginning, I felt like some sort of bizarre freak that, the only person in the world that had dealt with this. And then the foundation's website, a lot of information there. I was very, very private about it. Wouldn't discuss it with absolutely anyone. Wouldn't get around the house without a wig. Rarely would I take my wig off in front of my husband. So it was a very secretive sort of thing. And so when I discovered the Facebook page and some other support pages, Facebook pages, there was a forum that I could be truthful and honest and upfront about what was going on. So that was like two worlds. There was a secret world where, no one knew what was happening. And then there was those forums where you could be truthful and honest and deal with it in a more open way. So that was really helpful.
It's interesting that you say that, Leanne, because when I first started the foundation, the questions that always came in were, am I the only person that actually has this disease? And now I never hear that. It's not an email that I actually receive anymore. So it does actually show how well the awareness of alopecia areata is progressing throughout our community.
Fantastic. Leanne, your story continues where you managed to get onto some treatment, and wanted to ask you about how you found that and just a little bit of your journey through that.
So through the ups and downs of trying a lot of different treatments, quite harsh, usually used for cancer treatments and different sorts of drugs, I had some really harsh medications and then some other medical issues that I felt like were implications of the harsh medications. So I went medication free for about a year. At that time, I was probably early 40s. So I was studying for a Bachelor of Business. I'd gone back as a mature age student to uni, and I discovered academic articles and Google Scholar and the world of academic articles and research. And so what I found in that year that I was medication free and trying to regain my health and worry less about my appearance and my hair was that there are treatments out there and that there are options. Some new treatments, the JAK inhibitors, they were very new at that time, 8-9 years ago, being discovered and trialled for certain conditions that are more prevalent, like rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis. And so what I discovered in that year that I was medication free is that there was a JAK inhibitor and a substance called tofacitinib that was very successful for rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis, but another person that had multiple conditions also had their hair totally regrow, and because they also had alopecia. So I was super excited when I saw the pictures of a totally bald head, much like my head was, and a progression of hair growth to a full head of hair. At that time, I was still considering whether I should go down the medication route or just live with it with my lovely wig. But what happened was I noticed other health issues. I felt like I had joint pain. I felt very tired, and this was all with no medication. So I couldn't then blame the other medications or any other substance. I live quite a healthy life. I've never smoked. I've never drank alcohol, rarely. So I felt like my body was attacking itself to a point where it was out of control. And I felt much like, if you're a diabetic, that you might need insulin, you have to have it. I felt like my body was attacking itself to a point where it needed a correction. So I went to my dermatologist. She said they hadn't had anyone on tofacitinib, but they could access it. It was very expensive, but I'm in a very fortunate position where finances aren't an issue, and I was willing to access that drug at any cost. And so my dermatologist worked with me. It took 3 or 4 months for her to get approvals, and they actually, rather than bring the substance and pay full price for it, they were able to make it at their own compound pharmacy in different dose amounts. So we went on to that medication. It was very successful. So I had no other medication other than the tofacitinib, and I went from a bald head without one single hair to a full head of hair in 9 to 12 months and then have never had to wear a wig since. That was probably 6 years ago now, and that was fantastic. So what's happened then after that, I went on certain doses. We dosed up to an effective dose. Then once it was effective, a full head of hair regrew. Then we dosed down to a maintenance dose. And then during COVID, I went off all medications and I've never had to go back on them. So I've been off all meds for 4 or 5 years, and I have maintained a full head of hair medication free. So I now have a full head of hair. So that was a miracle in many ways.
Well, it's an amazing success story, Leanne. And I know that you're a bit of a poster girl for some of the a dermatology brochure as well, showing our lovely locks. And you've also shared your story in awareness articles and publications. As a patient advocate, what positive impact do you think sharing your story has had on yourself and on others living with alopecia areata?
Well, much like the academic article that I found of the gentleman's hair that went from totally bald to a full head of hair, it gives hope. Those pictures are very obviously and overtly showcase what's possible. And for some people, they're happy to be bald, and I get that too, so I don't make any judgment on that. But for me, being bald felt like walking out the front door naked. The vulnerability, the exposure. Would you walk out your front door naked? And if you did, how would you feel? And that's how I felt leaving the house with no hair. So it was very emotionally stressful, a lot of anxiety, a lot of concern around professional life. What sort of profession should I work in? Wearing a wig has limitations. So it would just impacted every aspect of my life. And so having the access to these medications and now having a full head of hair and medication free, it's absolutely amazing for me.
Chel, how important are people like Leanne who live with alopecia in sharing their lived experience with others?
Every individual who can tell their story is vital. As Leanne said, she wasn't comfortable with a naked head, but there are people who are comfortable with a naked head who also tell, their story and why and how they're comfortable in it. Alopecia is very unpredictable, and it's probably the one thing that everybody struggles with, because today I have hair, tomorrow I may not have hair. I may not do a treatment and my hair grows back. I may do a treatment, my hair grows back, but then my hair falls out. So it is still very unpredictable in regards to living with alopecia. That is probably the biggest struggle that people come to the foundation with to try and live through as such. So everyone's story is vital. We do collect lots of people's stories, which are on the website, so that when people are newly diagnosed, they can go through and they can read how different people are going through their journey and make that decision that I mentioned earlier. Do I want to go down the medical path, or do I want to go down, a concealing path, or do I want to just be natural and have my own natural look? So everybody within the foundation or our community provides that information and that helping hand to everyone else that comes on the journey with us.
You've certainly got a wealth of lived experience with your patients through the foundation, and I guess people can connect with those who they feel comfortable with and relate to. So it's a terrific thing.
Chel, the foundation runs a kids camp, and I actually had the pleasure of being able to attend this 2 weeks ago in Adelaide, and it was great fun. Tell us a little about the camp and why it's so important for children and parents to feel empowered and like they have access to things like the camp and resources.
The camp came about because we were getting comments, am I the only person with this disease? So how could we actually bring people together so that we eradicated that question? To be able to do that, we started off with a very small camp. I think we had 25 children that went to Dubbo Zoo, and it was just fantastic because it was regional. We brought a lot of regional kids together. We brought kids from all over Australia, and just to see them interacting and talking to each other was just great. And they all left with huge smiles on their face. So from that day on, we have put on a kids camp. Prior to COVID, we were having around about 130 people attend the camp. 2 weeks ago, we had 100 people attend the camp. So it's still very popular in getting together and making those memories and making those lifelong friends. And one actually went to the 21st birthday of his friend. And they've kept that relationship, for the 8 years, which says wonders.
Yes, most definitely. And I think that was, the experience that I had attending, I guess, as a volunteer on the camp. And I'm going to change direction a little bit and ask you some questions around wigs. And I know at the camp, we actually had a presentation on wigs, and it was really lovely to sit there and watch the kids be able to try on different wigs and just sort of see that experience for them. In talking about wigs, we know, and I can speak personally as well, they can be really powerful, and Leanne spoke as well to this, in helping you regain your identity. Finding wigs, as Leanne mentioned, can be challenging. I know for me it was difficult. The cost is quite a significant barrier. How does AAAF assist people in accessing wigs?
So there's a couple of things in regards to wigs. So across the states, several of the states actually have a health rebate that you can tap into. So they do provide that, and that is for adults and for children. But many of the states have no funding at all. AAAF does a couple of things. We do advocate within the states and work with health ministers to bring greater funding that is available, put different protocols in place to be able to access the funding, and make it very specific for people with alopecia to be able to actually get onto these areas. But AAAF also runs a program which is called Grant a Wig. And currently the Grant a Wig program, it's an educational program that was started to see if children want to go into wigs, because the expense is high. If the child doesn't understand how to care for the wig and, they just grab it at the top and pull it off, the wig's not going to last very long. So it does make it a huge expense on the parents. So we created that program back in 2011, and we roughly give about 30 grants a year are granted to the children. If they decide that they want to continue into wearing a wig after they've gone down this path, there is a sister program that is run by Variety where children can apply and get full funding for their wigs. So AAAF has provided the opportunity as a progression path for them. We also run spot competitions, if you want to call it that, where people can enter competitions and things like that and be either granted money towards a wig or be put in contact with wig providers that are providing wigs for those competitions as such.
That's very thoughtful and kind of you. Leanne, when you decided to wear a wig, how did you feel walking out the first time? Tell us how you felt.
Oh, it was an absolutely amazing transformational experience. My wig that I purchased, it was a human hair suction cap wig. So it was one that was very secure. Prior to that, I'd had other wigs that weren't that secure. So the wig posed a whole new set of issues. While it would cover your hair, a windy day would be a nightmare, and so many other things. Now, wigs have progressed significantly in the last 10 years as a lot of things have improved in that instance, and there are a lot of different systems now to secure wigs much better. But my life changed when I got my suction cap human hair wig. So I could do everything else I wanted to do other than, say, going for a deep dive or a water ski with that wig. And then my attitude changed, my life changed, my outlook changed, and it was a really pivotal time. The wig was, for me, a game changer.
How did others respond to the wig? Just out of interest, friends and colleagues, perhaps, did they even notice? I mean, I guess if they knew your story, they would have, but how did you find others? Did they even notice?
Well, this is the thing. I never told anyone I had alopecia. No one ever knew I had alopecia. Every topper wig that I had would mimic the hair I had 3 or 4 years prior to that. So I maintained that secret right through. So no person knew that I had had a wig outside of my immediate family. And when I felt comfortable enough and my hair was regrowing and I had a lovely wig, I started telling people. And every person that I told nearly fell over backwards. They're like, "What? I can't believe what you're telling me." And then because I was a bit more confident at that point, I'd pop the wig off and really surprise them because I had really short hair at that time. It was fascinating. So once the hair started regrowing, I felt more comfortable sharing the story. But up until that point, I hadn't told a soul other than people in my household and my parents.
Fantastic.
Chel, would you mind letting us know a little bit more around how AAAF get involved in providing access to treatments for alopecia areata?
AAAF is very involved in getting individuals onto the trials and working with the dermatologists to get access to it to increase the actual numbers for the trials, and also doing several surveys out to our community to obtain the quality of life characteristics, both from an individual's perspective and a financial perspective, because they're the metrics that are missing from being able to give the pharmaceutical companies the information they need to go towards the government to champion getting the JAK inhibitors onto the PBS.
One last question to you both. What is your message of hope for those just starting out on their alopecia journey? I'll go to Chel first.
Be open and honest in regards to your diagnosis, because it will help with your mental health. You can start within your immediate family, and once you're comfortable within your immediate family, branch out, go to your friends, go to your peers, and then, go to a wider audience. But be open and honest, and you'll find that you progress to acceptance of your condition a lot quicker.
And Leanne?
Okay, so I am very hopeful between the advancements we've had with wigs, with medication advancements and the medical profession, with awareness and people having more awareness and it being less of a secretive issue and easier to come out about it because of the great work like the AAAF have done. Raising that awareness, people understanding that condition is not contagious, you're not dying, it's an autoimmune condition, and that gives me hope that people have a better understanding, the broader community to have a better understanding of what alopecia is, and for those that are suffering with alopecia, have a better understanding of what their options are and the financial resources to help them explore those options and the right option that feels right for them at any given time. That gives me a lot of hope, and I think we've made huge progress. So I'm super hopeful and super excited.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chel and Leanne, for coming on today and sharing such amazing insights on alopecia areata.
Thank you, Joanne and Naomi and Leanne, for this opportunity to actually explain further what alopecia areata is to our community.
Thanks, Naomi, Joanne and Chel, for this really great conversation. Keep the conversations going, keep the awareness happening, and keep searching out your options. We've got a great, bright future ahead for alopecia.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. We hope the stories, insights, and voices we've shared have touched you, educated you, and made your journey a little brighter.
Living with alopecia areata is more than just about hair. It's about resilience, identity, and community. And together, we're building that community one story at a time.
This podcast was made possible with support from Pfizer Australia.
If our words resonated with you, please take a moment to rate us, leave a glowing review, and share this podcast with your friends, family, and networks. Every share amplifies our voice and helps someone out there feel understood. If you have any questions, comments, episode topics, you can email us at podcasts@ghlf.org.
Until next time, remember, whether you're on the path of acceptance, seeking treatments, or anywhere in between, we're with you, from here to there.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation Podcast Network.